Sige.
Sige, Sir Jeff. Thank you.
Sige. So, natakaroon just to kanang continue lang our discussion, no? On cartography transformations from data to maps. So I know that most of you who are attending in this session have some knowledge now of GIS. In particular, um, you're already doing mapping, no? But just for those nga wala pa on the same page with us, so I'd like to do a more basic no nga discussion on transformation of information, especially data, no, to maps, no, because this is essentially one form of um, visualization that we can work on as future ano nga geomaticians, as we call ourselves, no, depending on your line of work as well as your applications, no, the work of GIS is essentially turning data into visualized form. So we have here five topic objectives, which aims to introduce you to cartography as well as the different concepts of projections, identifying many types of maps, and also to determine map elements, especially those that are cartographic in detail. And last, to compare vector relational information from quantitative to qualitative maps, as these are options for us to display information. No, it's not always about quantitative. There are also qualitative information that we can display based on the factors that we want to present, no, in a visualization tool. So, cartography is essentially the art and science of expressing graphically, no? Graphically because we want to draw the information that we can extract from um, essentially, no, those information that we can extract from um, numbers. So that's the quantitative part of it. But because the field also has evolved, we also consider the art side of it. So meaning the aesthetic aspect of producing maps. In fact, cartography is considered as one form of art because much of the, especially the mid-century world, has been mapped out as way of this um, declaring, no, this declaration of a boundary or this declaration of a certain kingdom. We tend to use maps as a way of proving that this area is part of us. And so those colonial um, ideologies back then were essentially recorded, no, by way of mapping. So when a certain kingdom conquers a certain area, the victors will be the ones to display the maps as part of their domain. And usually, these maps will feature natural and social features of the earth. So, for example, rivers, for example, mountains or the boundaries of mountains, and even social features like the name of an area and how it changed from one conqueror to another. No, it's pretty common in the European side where one map is displayed perhaps in Latin form, and then when it's translated, it can be shown differently, even the names differently when it's now the French who does the mapping, and even when the Spanish did the mapping. So these transitions create variations because of time, no? Kaya depende sa what era was this mapped on or produced rather, and even put the available materials that were present in these areas will dictate the way these maps are created. But generally, what is essential that we display on maps before we can call it as cartographic map or even geographic map, no, because geographic map is the new term, but it used to be just cartographic map. It must display cultural features, those that are built by men. So roads, lakes, even lakes, no, because you might say, sir, isn't it that the lake is a natural or physical feature? But take note, a lake needs to be mapped out, especially the boundaries, and then you set, for example, the beach of that lake, no? And in that sense, no, the lake can be considered as a cultural feature. Next, buildings, rivers, contours, no? Especially contours when we want to lay the information of the elevation. So contours are essential. And sometimes when contours become um, so closely spaced, we tend to write the number. Okay? So later you will see how this can be overlaid together with other features. Next is numeric data. There are maps that are essentially just to display socio-demographic information. For example, income, population, which were taken from census data, or even value of land. No, nowadays people are um, scouring the internet. No, if there are information that would dictate the cost of purchasing perhaps a space on a building like condominium unit or perhaps on a land, no? So normally we have the tax map that will declare the value of the land, but nowadays um, this can also be variable depending on some other features like accessibility and the like, no? But if information is available, this can be displayed as well, no, in a map. But there are cases lang that proprietary information limits the display of numeric data. That's why even Google restricts adding information that would compromise the cost, no? Di mo na siya makita kaayo sa Google. In kuan lugar, in as an alternative lugar of that, if there are numeric information that can be updated. Now, for example, hotel prices. So that one, it can be displayed, but not the value of land. No. Okay, if that's the case, no, everyone can dictate unsa gid ang value sa ilang lote, and that will kanang create like a much more difficult, no, nga marketplace for those in the real estate business. Third type are physical features like geologic features like the type of the soil, the type of the rock, etc., which are essential to some people, as well as land use, forestry, vegetation, and the like. So how are these presented or represented in a map? So we know that the Earth is a flat surface. So if you're mapping a large area like a country, no, you need to take note that the Earth is not a flat surface. What you display that is moving on the screen is basically a geoid model of the Earth with this a gravitational value model. So if you see values that are red, that could essentially mean farther from the core, so meaning high elevated areas, and if it's deeper blue, then it's near the core, so essentially deeper po siya nga area like trenches or deeper parts of the ocean. But take note, if you're mapping a small area, um, taking note of the flat surface is not so essential, no? Like barangay lang yung mapa, sure ka flat gina siya. But if you're mapping now bigger areas, which is the case for your midterm project, you need to take note of the projection. That's why earlier we've discussed the different projections that are available for you to explore. Recall that the Earth, although it is not so round like a spheroid, but we tend to divide it into sections that would make it into a flat surface because our system of displaying information is on a flat, no, sheet of paper, no. So dagko gina siya nga paper, even though it may fill up the entire room, but it's really a challenge to display a curved surface. It's simpler to put it in a flat surface. That's why we use projections. So projections can be grouped into three. There are three main classifications: cylindrical, conic, and planar. Of course, most of us knows about cylindrical. Kaya mo man na siya ang gigamit sa WGS 84, no? But there are also conical and planar. The difference between the three is on where you are located. No, so the lines that are indicated there would um, tell you that if your area that is being mapped is near those red lines, then it's most probably best to use these types of projections. So since we are on the equator, as can be seen in the cylindrical cut, no, in between manta sa duha ka lines, so it's best for us to use a cylindrical projection. But if you're near the poles, no, either planar na siya or conic. That is why in flat maps, Antarctica looks big, but in reality it's small. It's even smaller than Australia. But what we see on the map, because it's spread out, makita na to nga Antarctica seems bigger than Australia. Next, if you are to produce a cartographic map, scales are essential. So there are three ways to represent scale. One is fraction form, like 1 is to 50,000, no? If you're using government produced information, you should be careful on the projection, oh sorry, on the scales, no? Especially the representative fractions. So like Namria, I think the least that they can produce is 1 is to 5,000. But if you have information up to the barangay level, you can reduce that to 1 is to 1,000. Verbal statements are also ideal, especially if these maps were generated using linear scale and especially those that are mapped using the SI system. So we do find them or a few of them using this, but still it's best to check all corners of the map because sometimes mappers would put them on the left hand side or in the middle, or sometimes they forget. So be careful to check on this. The third one is the most artistic of all, which is scale bar. So scale bars indicate the representative distance on paper and how it should appear on reality. Next, scale is important. So if you're mapping a city, the best is below 1 is to 5,000 or 1 is to 5,000. For smaller scales, then this is what we call as country scale. So mabot na siya million, 1 is to 30 million. For example, the map of Canada. So if you're mapping a grid of a city, below gina siya 1.5. In some cases, if data is available, you can do it 1 is to 2,500, even up to 1 is to 1,000. But if a country, so this is how it will look like, 1 is to 30 million, no? So notice the differences and the values as well as the amount of information that you can display depending on the scale. So going back, if it is a big scale like this, so many information is needed. Whereas if it is small scale like this, you only need the major information like name of country, the official boundaries of these countries, as well as some natural features that can be mapped. For example, in this case, in the northern part of America, the Great Lakes are shown. Okay, so for us, dili kayo siya critical if you're mapping lower the Philippines, kaya di man visible ang mga lakes, no? But if you're just mapping the island of Luzon, for example, so visible kay si Laguna Lake and the rest, no? Even in Mindanao, visible si Lake Lanao and the Liguasan Marsh in southern Mindanao. So the choice of scale also depends on the amount of data that you are capable of producing. So there are two main types of maps that you can produce. As I've said, they are classified as cartographic or geographic. But if you want to be more specific, if it only displays a certain information, for example, population lang, then that is called a thematic map. But if it tends to produce or relay information that is far more complete, no, meaning detailed and accurate, so we call that topographic map. Okay, so you might be kanang confused nga. Sir, di ba, when you say topographic map, it should only show elevation. Well, practically, if you want to display topography only, that is a topographic map. But in strict definitions, when you call it topographic and geographic, meaning it must have the thematic information as well as the cultural and natural features of the ground. And topographic maps are essentially the artistic maps that we see, no? For example, the one from Namria, where it displays the stark difference between water bodies and landforms. That is what we call as a topographic map. Of course, topographic maps are difficult to build. You need to have good information on an area, and you should also have better appreciation of the landforms. No, is that understood so far? Are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, yes, yep.
sige. Let's continue. So this is an example of thematic map. No, you see that or notice that the differences of information that is displayed, it's only a few and it's targeted. Okay. For example, if you're just displaying the location of shops in an area, then that is called a thematic map. Whereas if it's topographic, notice there is the roads, the rivers, even that the vegetation is explained there, that the green areas are heavily vegetated, and those in white are almost bald and we call that open land, no? And then other information like nowadays we have information of roads, no? Like ang roads at DPWH are segmented into national highways, Asian highways, as well as those in the barangay. So the colors will also vary, no? And in DPWH, normally if it's colored orange, that is a national road. And there are only three types of national roads: national primaries, secondaries, and tertiaries. So the deeper the color, then it is a higher hierarchy road. The lesser is the tint of the color, then that is a secondary to tertiary road. So that's an example shown here where you can see there's red and orange um, displaying the hierarchy of the roads. Of course, data transformations are essential. No, we need to know at what level of the data you wish to display. So, in your midterm report with Surdex, you will be asked to display hazard maps, no, as well as some vulnerability information. So, you also need to present what data or level of information you can display, because if it's purely raw data, we expect that your map would be heavily, no, heavily displaying the actual information. And normally it is in the form of digits. So we would see numbers there, no? And if you input that in a system, for example, there's a rain gauge, then you need to display the hourly rainfall in a map. That's difficult, no? That's why you need to choose what level you need to display, no? As can be seen here in the left hand side, no, geographical information as mentioned like rainfall and the like, you need to filter it so you can only display geospatial data. So what you have as raw data may not be essential to be mapped, no? Instead, you convert that into instrument data and even to calibrated data. So, for example, people are scouring the internet now for updated maps on the kadtong magnitude of the earthquake in northern Cebu, no, which is essentially the hot news nowadays, no. So we know there are two major quakes, magnitude 6.9, I think, and then last night there was magnitude 5.3. So if you're just scouring for the heavily felt earthquakes, you just map out the two. But if you check from FIVOL's website, there are thousands, literally 6,000 earthquakes since the start, no, of that tremor. And if you map out everything, that's difficult. 6,000 points, no, with varying magnitudes and locations. So instead, segment them. You can turn, like, classify those weaker quakes, say magnitude 1 to 3 or 2.9 perhaps, and then 3 to about 4, and then the rest, no? But the classification would depend on the use. Like if I am a seismologist, I don't need to segment them. I need all, no, because that would trigger warnings, no, when I give it out to, for example, if I belong to FIVOX, I would be tracking now the progression of these earthquakes because this may lead to a bigger one. But if I'm more of a um, like a rescue officer, no, if I belong to the USAR, Urban Search and Rescue, I'm more concerned on the significant ones. So see, the user is quite important here. So if you display a certain information, choose which ones that the user needs. Okay, not everyone will appreciate the information that you need to um, display, no? So earlier also I shared in my, I don't know if you're following me in Facebook, but if you're friends in Facebook, I shared a while ago a map, no, on the response of the United Nations as well as the European Union in terms of the current um, impact of the earthquake, no. I'd like to share that back in our chat group. Let me just find the group, no. Okay. So I think you can see it now in our chat group. That is a very um, tailored map, no? Not for everyone, no? Because the displayed information here, there's one that is on one side for um, those who wanted to know the severity of the event, and those information also that displays the impacts. No, notice that the earthquake occurred 30th of September, but this was handed out to us a day ago pa, so October 1. So they had to really strategize what information needs to be displayed because if this has to be decided nga katong real-time map gubot gid kay siya, no? Notice raw data up to value added information maglisod sila og display. So they have to check and counter check. That's why I would loud Mr. Ernesto one time no katong iyang nasayo pog display ang katong map in our group or was it in the other group no then yung gidelete ko nga sayang pwede ba ta mag-comment at
Kwan, sir. Typhoon.
lagi
Sana man to, sir, sa typhoon.
oo sa typhoon di
Typhoonan,
ba
no?
oo pero that's part actually of the process that your maps needs to undergo. So before you present for the midterm project lugar, you can consult us, even your peers, no, you can consult with us. Okay, we might have better insights, no? Okay, pag first hand pa lang to kita sa map, we see what is essential, no? So, I'm moving towards the announcement of your midterm project, but essentially the assignment or the instruction of Sir Dex, no, is the same instruction from my end. So meaning you need to present something related to hazard and risks, no. So what I'll be checking is the technical preparation of your data. So in my list, we have relevant hazards, second, exposure, and third, hazard and exposure overlays. That is what is needed for midterm, no? So kana lang tulo. So relevant hazards. So you have to choose whether it's flood, earthquake, or landslide. Exposure. What is your exposed population? Are these the individual household? Are these highway operators? Are these your colleagues in your department, perhaps, no? And perhaps the last one will trigger the overlays, no? Because you're now playing around with two information. One would be hazard, and then the other is exposure. So you wanted to see how this will um, challenge no your critical thinking on identifying critical facilities based on two layers, hazards and exposure. And we will be utilizing an information that is on the level of interoperable data as can be seen in the screen. These are already edited and subjected to quality control, no? So the main source that you will use is the Mines and Geosciences Bureau's hazard maps. Second, of course, the popular Project NOAA. And then the third one, which is from local information. I want you to challenge yourselves to map out from the social media. So na mag-report og video or photo no nga kanang nagbaha diri nag-earthquake and etc. Use them to validate the hazard. Even if what we require is just the hazard overlay, you need to validate that, no? So scour the social media, scour all even news articles because that can be used to validate the hazard, no? So more instruction about this will be given out to you tomorrow, no? But for now, what I need to give you as an information is that the same requirement of Surdex and my requirement will be submitted, no? And then what I'm trying to check lang is the technical know-how to prepare these three maps. Again, relevant hazards, second, exposure, and then the overlay of hazards and exposure. So, map features. Of course, even though it's an overlay, we need to display essential information, especially on exposure information. So, you can choose from point, line, and area. Points normally location of significant structures. So, maybe it's the center of the city, maybe the church, maybe a hospital, or maybe your facilities. Like for Sir Earning, maybe it's the facility that is an office, no? It can be as your critical infrastructure. While lines could be in the form of rivers, streets, railways, but don't overcrowd it. Okay? So, usahay, like si Christy siguro ganahan siya kay, I think Christy, you're working in an LGU, right? So, you might need
Yes, sir.
um, more information on roads, and then you have bridges, no? Roads and bridges together are okay, but if you mix it with other linear forms like telephone lines, no, that's already not visually appealing. Kay mag-crisscross na siya, no? Or even gani internet, no, lines like sa PLDT, etc. So it's best to group them. So for example, all physical road infrastructures should be in one map. Next, katong for communication should be in another map, no? Okay, the road might be your exposed element. The communication lines can also be an exposed element, no? All the more kung may power, utility, and water, na, bubot kay na siya. So, best to segment them separately. Areas like cities or geological features, as long as they are aerial in form, like what you see in the background where there's a color, then that can be your choice, no? Next, there are two main forms or structures of how you can represent data: vector and raster. So vector form, those that have exact locations and they are generated from X and Y data. So normally these are extracted from spreadsheet data. No? Nakay Excel, then nakay X and Y dito, latitude and longitude, then yung display. And then if you can connect the lines to form, say, the road or the river, then that becomes your vector data. And then we also have aerial data like boundaries, no, sitio, barangay boundaries that can also be used. Together, they can represent the community or the information of a community. So points, for example, can be location of houses, lines, the facilities like roads, and areas could be the city boundary. The thing that is difficult to map is raster because you can only display one information at a time. It's really difficult to display points, lines, and areas together in a raster form because there is a consistent and uniform grid size. So there is no distinction anymore. What is best to be displayed using raster is if there is a satellite image. For example, you're using Aster data, which displays the elevation. So it's best to use raster because there's a uniform information that you want. That is elevation. Okay? So in sense, if you're displaying a single numerical data, use raster. But if you have multiple information or you wish to display more information in one map, then use the 3 points line areas in vector form, no? Sometimes wood raster is only doable if you have um, the access to either drone images or your satellite images. So it depends also on your data source. So an example of where the three are mapped together is shown here. You have the point, area, and line, and you can see the variation if it's water body and if there is a land body or the vegetation. So you can play around with the colors to display the differences in the information of that polygon. Data can also be mapped out in qualitative form and quantitative form. So for qualitative, it is spatial distribution, like you wish to classify the type of soil, the type of land, no? And these are not dependent on numeric data. These are normally nominal, which is name. It can also be ordinal, which is like rank. For example, you're trying to map out what is the first priority areas for evacuation. So you then rank it as first, second, third, fourth, up to what number. You can use qualitative there, no? You might be tempted nga, sir, di ba number man siya, so quanti siya? No. Quanti man good displays numerical information, not just digits, but decimals. So kung ordinal siya nga order, quali gina siya. So ang quantitative is more about income, population density, population information, how many families, how many households, no? The how many and how much is quantitative. Next, quantitative values can also be seen here as a way of visualization. You have a choice between size, pattern texture, color lightness, and saturation. Now, let's segment them one by one. Size is essentially showing bigger numbers will have bigger sizes. So if it's in a point form, of course, small circles mean smaller number or smaller quantities, while large circles show large or high quantities. For lines, it can be the thickness of the line, which may show a higher number. For example, you're mapping out congestion in road intersections. So the lower values will be thinner, and then the higher values will be thicker. Area in 3D can also be shown like this one. The areas with a high extrusion have high values, while those that are near the surface are low values. Pattern texture can also be a choice. Normally, we just display a closer drawing of the patterns would mean low or coarser value, whereas those with a more defined tint, no, medyo duol na siya, would have higher or um, thicker na value. Lightness can also be used, but lightness and color saturation are two different things. Lightness is when you apply white. Okay? So, if there's more white to it, then it has a lower value. If it has rather a more um, what we call as value of that same color, for example, white and blue, you're just comparing the two, then that becomes lightness, no? Pero saturation is different because saturation is adding more red. Okay? So saturation would mean richness of the color if there's red. So saturation can only be used if you aim to differentiate two colors, except white, no. For example, yellow to orange, red to orange, etc. Maybe purple to blue. Those are saturation colors. Because if you keep on adding red, it becomes rich to the point that it becomes um, like not bright but more of saturated in terms of redness. Okay. So an example of a qualitative map is this one. This is a watershed map where all watersheds are segmented based on their, guess what? Is this saturation or is this lightness? unsa may makita ninyo nga gavari kaayo dire?
Yo, putol pa sir.
How about that? Nga nagaputol pa?
Okay, alam.
Sige. Sige, I'll skip na lang the question, no? This actually shows different watershed areas. But those areas that are smaller would appear with a more pink or red color, and those that are bigger will appear more green. But there's an obvious difference between the middle basins or watersheds because the lightness is being triggered here, no? So it can also be applied to display area of a land, for example, watershed areas. In other examples, this is a quantitative map showing number of dwellings, but notice how this will change if we change the number of intervals. Okay, so now let's just skip that. No, this is where you have this number of colors, which essentially shows you a not so friendly color combination. But if you use this one, no, we can better appreciate those areas with smaller number of dwellings, no, kanang mga greens. And if you also check the number of intervals, like 10 intervals, it's pretty obvious. We can spot the bigger numbers, but we cannot really classify those with the smaller and near the average numbers. But if we increase that to 7 color intervals, 5, no, sorry, 5, we can better segment the areas with large numbers. But those near the average are often left out. So even the number of intervals is a question, no? And if you're not so sure yet on the data that you need to display, it's best to produce different maps with different intervals. So I also judged sa number. Instead, use quantile. So quantile is when you group them into 4. So basically, if you have data of 0 to 100 lang ang kanang possible nga info in your map. So what will happen is that it will display 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100. So that's how it works with quantile. There is also kanang you can use geometric. No, geometric is by using the geometric progression. So you start with a number and then you get the geometric progression of that until you reach the maximum. So it may display information like those that are how many have this certain number. So ayang i-display kasagaraan na kay ang katong daghan using a certain number. Pero kung mo lang gusto is mag-group lang siya into 4, then use quantile. After that, you can play around with the number of intervals, and that will guide your way of mapping. In your midterm project, because you will be displaying hazard maps, normally there is already a classification. Low, medium, high. Okay? But take note that the basis of that is the validated hazard. Because sometimes low is medium to some. No? Like for example, you compare the floods of Malaysia and the Philippines. The medium flood hazard to us might be high in a Malaysian context because it floods less frequent compared to the Philippines. So sa ato maybe o tungod sa atong high resilience kumbaga no, okay pa sa ato ang medium pero sa ilaha lubog na kayo sila ang ilang community sa ana no. So the context of the classification would vary also on your validated no lived out experience sa imuhang constituents. And some rules lang on placing text and graphics no. We can utilize or borrow from Bumstead's rules no. Spacing is one no. So if you wish to highlight like the title, spacing should be wide enough to be visible. And notice the difference if you use bigger fonts and smaller fonts with a varying spacing that will also deliberately change the way your map is being understood. There should also be good spacing between sentences and words, just like this. This is a good spacing, while below is a bad spacing. Space between texts that are longer are also essential. Make it readable, no? Not like the ones that you see here in the bottom. Also, space between lines is essential. So, as example here, if there's a few information, you can crowd out the information within the space provided, but not to the point that you will reach this one, no? Because this is no longer readable. Kaning, you probably see this vertically, no? Di na kaya na siya maklaro. And of course, if there are information that are essential, you can make use of boxes and variation in font style and font sizes. Text placement. Okay, there are different ways of displaying text, no? And you can change this in your software. So this is the clockwise orientation, where you have one at the upper right corner, and then the last number can be found on the opposite corner. So that is like a preferred way of displaying spot names. Basta around lang siya sa point. Never place a text that would cover the point, no? Because the point is there to be located. Dili siya pwede tambunan. You may also choose a less desirable location like this, na top and bottom, no? Nasa taas, nasa ubos. This can be visually confusing, especially if there are many points that you need to map out. So best to use yun kaning spot names across the corners. Next, if it's curved, no, especially if crowded na ang mga names, so you can use this one, no. Notice lang that we should write it left to right no matter how we orient the point. Ayaw tong right to left na dagan ko gakita nga maps nga ga right to left. Most of the one manggod English world uses left to right, so use that. Next, there's also curved text recommendation by Imhoff. You see here, it's quite poor if it's already stretching the word, and you're also twisting your neck when you read this one. No, it's not good. It's straining to the eye. So don't make it too circular. Instead, just put one part circular and the other linear. This is true if you're mapping reverse, kay normally text placed on lines that are curving, you need to follow also the curvature of the line. But take note lang, you only choose to do that on one end. Ayaw the entire, kaya di na maklaro, no? Ilisod na po siya basahon. Map layout, no? Use of white space is essential. Of course, you might be tempted to map out everything, no? Wala gi white space sa paper, but white space gives you not that data is absent, no? But that white space should be a signal that something is to be written or placed here. So you fill it with the title, the legend, the scale bar, the source, which is essential. No, most of us, when we present maps, wala source, so we just claim it as ours. As part of our ethical conduct as researchers, you need to place the source, no? Whether it is on the map or on the description, it's your choice which one is a better way of presenting the information. Next, projection information is also essential, non-negotiable, you need to place it. North arrow to orient the user of the map, because nowadays you can map or show the map the opposite way. So best to show always the north arrow. Space map elements with equal white space, don't overcrowd in one corner. Okay, so as a basic template, this is how we display our maps. Even in research, many ang required, where the title is normally found on the upper side of the map, the sources at the bottom, together with the scale and also the legend. The legend, you can play around, pwede siya on the lower left, but like me, I always like it on the left side. Ano man, si left side mo good often doesn't show any information. So left out siya ba? And heavy ra pud kayo if you put it on one side. So strike a balance when you present the map. So for me, I put the legend on my left because on my right, I will still put my north arrow. I still have to place in more or detailed information about the map. Like I would sometimes tell the story of the map, no? So that's why I don't want it on one side lang, no? You can always put it on other or on the opposite side. Now, paper towns, no? Have you heard of paper towns before? Anyone?
Wala pa.
Wala pa.
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Okay. So this is the first time that you will hear about this, no? Paper towns are actually your way of validating as a mapper, no? Okay. Nowadays, anyone can copy a map, no? Now, paper towns are placed for you to identify if your map was indeed, no, plagiarized. So, um, you only place it on a corner or perhaps on a um, least essential no part sa map. You can put a name that will only appear on paper. For example, I will write there Jefferson Town in any of my map, no? And if someone would copy that fictitious paper town, that means that map was plagiarized. So paper towns are essential to trace if your map is copied or being reproduced somewhere else because you alone knows that that town is fictitious. That's why it's called a paper town. Okay? So Namria also does this. You will notice, no? Nga kanang mga Namria, nganong wrong spelling, no? Wrong spelling na sila because they want to check if other agencies are copying their map without permission. So I would also be looking out for this one in the maps that you will produce, no? Dili pud pwede nga 2 points in a map are paper towns, isa lang, no? Kaya that will also confuse, no, the user nga, hoy, naman ni nga town lagi or kani nga place wala man nag-exist in reality, no? And then you can also add this explainer on one side of your map, no, nga for the purpose of validating plagiarism, yun mo ganang i-write, spell out ni mo na. Kaya not everyone knows this, that this town, like Jefferson Town, does not exist in reality. So yun mo ganang ibutang. Okay? Next, symbols. The choice of symbols would vary depending on the style of the map. So in QGIS, there are pre-built symbols. I think that's in SVG format. So you can choose. You can also create your own, no? Like me, I would like you or encourage you to create your own symbols, no? In the recent maps that we've produced, we even created our own symbols for reverse, no? Kay gusto mi lahi gyud og itsura ang reverse. So we have to redesign the reverse that we display on maps. Names like this, no, mga examples sa paper towns. There's Ipunon River. There's also Carman. Of course, we know that as Carmen and Ipunan River, but it was intended to be misspelled for proprietary reasons. Orientation, of course, there are many ways to display the map orientation, but notice that you need to place it on the corner. Your choice only is left or right. There are mappers who would like their kanang north arrow to be placed in the middle. It's okay as long as there is an inset map just like this. So pwede nimo na butangan. But generally, if you want to orient all maps in your paper is oriented north, put it on one corner para simple and para visible. So an example of a well-designed map is like this, no? There's the title there. There is a neat line. The graticules are indicated. The north arrow is there. There's a logo of that part. Like if you're mapping multiple countries, then it's essential to put that. Legends, detail of the data frames, as well as extent indicators. So grid lines are also essential to note or to display the location, especially if you're using a certain projection. So it's essential to place them also in the map. So grid lines in the NumRia maps are actually found um, on the corners. You will see there na yung mga numbers, no? And it's also indicated there the projection used, which is Traverse Mercator projection. Data sources and legends and other infos are also placed like this one. This is the legend part, no? It's essential to place or exhaust the space that is available, especially if it is a topographic map. Also, some index maps are placed to indicate that this map is part of a bigger map. Okay? And these are just examples of maps that display different themes, no? Like this one, it's intended for disasters. So notice the clean color of the maps, no? Some would like to draw with maps nga na darker color to perhaps to aid the user ba nga focus on the kanang the affected areas, so the rest are blackened out. It's good, no? And especially now that there are accessibility issues if your map needs to be displayed in a mobile device, di ba? Kay white manggod might be too hurting on the eye, so that's why you choose to use darker shades, no? That's okay. It's not a like for me, I don't believe that that is a sin in mapping, no? But there you just need to ask lang pod some who will review your map. Like for one, I know Sir Dex doesn't like darker maps. Big no-no gina saya. Pero ako okay ra ko kay display mo gud ang maps for most of the time sa devices. Pero sa iya gusto mo gud niya iyang perception paper ni siya magawas. So it should be white. Okay. Next, there are also maps that are too crowded like this one. This is a big no-no for me if there are so many information that can be displayed in the map because it devoids or rather removes the information that are essential. Like borders of countries are not so much appreciated here, as well as other information outside of the region that it is being displayed, so dili na kayo kanang visible. Like kani gituyo lang gid nga gilikay kang Iceland although wala siya kanang information on voluntary pool of offered capacities in a certain disaster. These are examples of maps in the portrait scale which are minimally designed, no? These are maps we generated for the SHIELD project for the Samdana Institute, no? So I led this mapping project. You will notice medyo clean ang design because we had to undergo, I think, 18 iterations. Okay, the initial maps that I've produced has more information, but the funder wants it to be just minimal. So I have to remove and remove more information every time. No, as an example, this is one for Taguluan River Basin. You will notice the variation in the amount of information also. No, so I want you to consider this in your mapping projects because sometime midterms